Greetings, magnificent souls, to the Attract Health, Build Wealth podcast, where we have open and honest discussions about ourselves. This is your host, Lily Bewley, and I'm honored to have conversations here with thought leaders, visionaries, healers, and even solo conversations with myself about things I am currently reflecting on. This is a place where we break down, break away, and break through our emotional trauma, allowing ourselves to attract health, build wealth, and live a peaceful life. We are tired of being sick and tired. We are tired, but we are not giving up. We know that there is something magnificent inside of us. And because we are fighting daily, hourly, and by the minute, fighting ourselves, our kids, our spouses, we have to do things differently. We have to break the cycle. We don't have a million chances. We have to be happy now. We have to find a way. So how do we do that? How is that possible? If you look around at what society is telling you, they tell you that what we're doing is impossible. Yet it's happening every single day. And it's happening through the practice and the love that we call awakening the magnificent soul. We are all magnificent souls, and these are our stories of healing. Today in episode 67, I welcome Jane Ysadora to the show to talk about a lot of juicy stuff, including manifesting, which is one of my favorite topics lately. But before we get into the podcast, don't forget to let me know your thoughts about this episode, any feedback you have, or anything you would like me to cover on future podcasts at epiphanyvault.com. Remember, it is a safe place, and I would welcome the discussion. And today's episode is brought to you by the How to Deal with Anxiety and Receive Limitless Love workbook. It is a complimentary gift that I am offering to my community, and it's really great if you are feeling blocked right now because of your anxiety. It's a tool that I use almost every day, and I'm honored to bring it to you, and you can pick it up for free at soullove.today. And I'll link that in the show notes as well. So my guest today, Jane Ysadora, is a transformational coach, speaker, and spiritual teacher who helps people all over the world transform past pain into an abundant, soul-led life. Straight to the heart. So good. I really hope you enjoy our conversation. And now, on to the show. Jane, welcome to the podcast. Second time on the show. Yes, I'm so happy to have you here again.
Me too.
Yes.
Love it.
Super excited about this conversation today. But first, I think I have some new podcast listeners in my audience. So I would love for you to share a little bit about you, about your story, even how we connected, however, you want to go for. Would you be open to doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you know, my name is Jane Ysadora. I am a transformational coach, writer, speaker, and spiritual teacher. I focus on trauma-informed manifesting and aligning with your purpose and your soul calling. My tagline is manifesting is a healing process. And you just asked me for like 3 or 4 different things. What did you want next?
Well, yeah, whatever you feel comfortable with. I would just love for my audience to kind of get to know you a little bit more, how you got here. Like, manifesting is a healing process, but has it always been? My guess is not.
Oh yeah, no. There's a lot of things before I realized that it's a healing process. I didn't invent that manifesting is a healing process. I mean, I invented that tagline for sure. But I believe that its nature is that it's a healing process, and that the only way to have consistent manifesting that works is to do it with healing work, is to heal what's blocking it. I think manifesting comes very, very naturally. And if it doesn't, then there are wounds in the way. And how I got there was becoming a young, broke, single mom very suddenly. My ex-husband decided that life wasn't for him anymore. And there I was with a boatload of unhealed trauma, 26 years old and 2 small kids.
Wow.
And super, super broke. And so, really started to deep dive on the spiritual path. Studying yoga, studying Tibetan Buddhism, studying shamanism, becoming trained in shamanic healing. I'm a yoga teacher, trained in meditation, and like the whole spectrum, right?
Wow. Yeah.
At the same time as I just was really trying to solve my money problem and trying like law of attraction and The Secret and affirmations and like writing it all out and like saying it like present tense, like trying to do all of that. And having like a pretty intense trauma background, right? Like I always say, I have 11 out of 10 ACEs. So I have all 10, plus I was raised in a cult. So there was a lot that came with that. Like, I was really unhappy. I was really depressed. I was really anxious. I had toxic relationships. And so I really kept going on those three paths: the spiritual path, the emotional healing path, and the money and manifesting path, until at some point they just really beautifully converged. And I realized that you need all three of them to have a successful manifesting practice.
Wow.
And that's turned into the business that I have today.
Wow. I want to get more into the business, but can I back it up a little bit? Screet, screet.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
I love that.
These are my own audio
You don't need a sound effects person.
enhancements. Yes.
Yeah, you've got it
Um,
all.
so we got deep real fast. If you know a few listeners out there, you know that I've been doing this shit since 2018. So we go deep real fast, but let's back it up a little bit if you don't mind. So
Yeah.
what's an ACE? For those of the people out there that don't know what an ACE is, do you mind sharing? I know what it is, but I'd love for you to share that kind of breakdown.
Yeah, an ACE is a very incomplete scale. So it stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. And it's what like the CDC uses, what the DSM uses to categorize childhood trauma. So it doesn't touch adult trauma, and it's missing a whole bunch of things, right? Like there are capital T traumas that aren't on that ACE scale, but they touch 10 core, what you would call capital T or heavy traumas, right? So it's a useful, like people will use that for diagnoses or just to know themselves better or to kind of identify what they've been through. And then it's also used as a predictor of adult outcomes.
Yes. So if you're out there and you haven't heard of an ACE, ACE, go look it up because it's super powerful with self-awareness. I also score very high on the ACE score, as you know, Jane, because we've known each other for a little bit now. So it's a really good indication of what is a good indication of? What would you say?
Am I allowed to curse?
Yes.
Because I kind of wanted to be like how effed you are.
Yeah. Express yourself, Jane.
No, I'm kidding. I mean, it can mean that, right? Like without healing, people with high ACEs tend to live in poverty. They tend to enter abusive relationships, and they tend towards suicide.
Drug
They tend
use.
towards long-term mental illness. And like it's an indicator of some very, very dark things. But like if you go there and you look it up and you're like, oh, I have 6 or whatever your number is, don't despair, because I think that a lot of us in the healing world also tend to have high ACEs, right?
Yes.
So I think it can also be an indicator of potential for transformation.
Yeah. I always like to say that the depth of our traumas is almost equates to the depth of our healing, right? Like our suffering can really be alchemized into so much dopeness and so much good. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're just
So
listening to this on audio, you don't see me like doing a very
yes.
dramatic head nod of
Yes.
like, yes,
For the full
yes.
video experience, you can go to the YouTube channel. But okay, great. Thank you for laying that foundation. I feel like that would help for people out there. And by the way, like since 2018, we have been talking here in this community about adverse childhood experiences, but I feel like it's a relatively new-ish, maybe in the last, what do you say, 15 years, 20 years, where it's really come into the forefront about how those childhood instances really kind of show up in our adulthood in different
Yeah, it's
things that we
really
struggle with.
just been since the late 70s. I think ACEs were probably developed as a scale.
Yeah.
Gosh, I don't even know,
I
but
do.
it wasn't 80s or 90s, something
Yeah,
like
there's a
that.
book that I read about that, the lady that headed that up, and I'll put that in the show notes if I remember and if I find it. So let's talk about the good shit. Let's talk
Hell yes.
about manifesting. Why is this word triggering to some people?
That's amazing. That's such a good question, Lily. That's such a good question. Um, because most people have been told that they should be able to do something with an incomplete set of tools, right? So,
Oh God, Jane, yes.
right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't spend any time in the spiritual world without being told, like, hey, you create your own reality, right? And so when that
Yeah.
doesn't work, it can start to feel like something must be wrong with me, right? When like, no, there you just have been given an incomplete tool set. And yeah, you absolutely do create your own reality. But so many of those wounds, whether it's a big T trauma or a little T trauma, get in the way of that. And so if you're trying to like use these tools without doing the healing work, then it's not going to work. And that's not your fault.
Mm.
It's just that those people that told you to create your own reality didn't give you the full story.
Mm. So we're getting half the story, which I agree.
And I want to add, like, I'm not trashing manifestation teachers.
Right.
They didn't have the whole story until
Yeah.
recently,
Yeah.
right? Like this,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, all of this neuroscience is just fresh. It's really new. Most
Mm-hmm.
therapists don't even know a lot of these things.
Yeah.
So they just didn't know. And so they couldn't pass that on.
Totally. Totally. And is it safe to say that if, and this was me, like raising my hand for the YouTube audience out there, is it safe to say that if you try these different, for lack of a better term, mindset techniques or law of attraction techniques or affirmations or saying this shit in the mirror in the morning, if that gets frustrating, right? Which is me totally. I went through a phase in my life where I was into The Secret, I was into affirmations and manifesting and abundance, and it just never came into fruition. Why?
Yeah, because
And
part of you didn't
do you
feel
feel me on
safe.
that? Do you feel me on
Yeah,
that? Yeah.
100%. And
Yeah.
if all that stuff worked on its own, every yoga teacher on earth would be rolling.
Mm-hmm.
Like every seeker, there would be no more money industry. There would be no more financial industry. Like we would have all solved it right by now, right? Um, I totally got sidetracked. Those things don't work alone. They do work. Like they do work after you've done the healing work,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't work on their own. And because you can say, I make $10,000 a month till you are out of oxygen. You can say it
Mm-hmm.
until your voice is hoarse and your tongue falls off. And if some part of you doesn't feel safe with money, doesn't feel safe receiving, doesn't feel safe offering services, doesn't feel safe with worth, you're not going to get $10,000 a month.
So true. So
Like
true.
it's really all about like the safety to have what you want to have. And you don't have that safety because there are wounds that taught you that wasn't safe.
Right. And you can manifest abundance, like money. You can manifest self-love, right? Like these are practices, right? But combined with this healing work that you're talking about, which I'm interested to hear more, kind of what your version of healing work is and how you do that. I think that everyone would want to know that. But for me, and I also think that manifesting is it's subjective, right? Like it's each person. What am I trying to say? I think I was stuck for a long time also is because the things that I wanted to manifest were other people's dreams and other people's goals. And I think that as I learned to open up to my healing and to what like my true authentic person is, like myself, then manifesting it's mine. Like it's whatever I want, right? It's not just a 5K month, or it's not just like a soulmate. It's like it means something and it feels something differently to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Really, at our core, we want to manifest feelings.
Yeah, right. Yeah, for sure. So good. So what is this healing process you speak of?
It's different for every person,
Mm.
right? But really, it's about finding where your system got stuck around something that
Mm.
then has created a belief system, a story that have created actions that are translating into like scarcity in your life, right? But being able to um, figure out like what's at the root of that, what your body's holding on to that's keeping away abundance, that's keeping away scarcity, or that's
Mm.
keeping away prosperity, it's keeping you locked in that scarcity, like what your body holds, what your
Mm-hmm.
nervous system holds, right? And being able to make friends with that part of you and give it what it needed that it didn't get in the moment, and really come into like a wholeness around it, right? It's not about letting go, it's not about dropping, it's about coming into wholeness. And from that place of wholeness, it's really easy to tap into what I call like the deep heart. You might call it the soul, you might call it the self, but to tap into that infinite part of you that has that like blueprint for what you're here to experience, for what you're here to create, what you're here to receive. And from that place of like all your internal parts are cared for, then you're able to then create from that soul place.
Oh
And
yeah.
from that place, it's not really even that hard. Like it's pretty easy.
Yeah, I've definitely experienced that in the last year, for sure. Um, I feel like it's a little bit of a disservice to our culture in that we think everything has to be hard work. When in
Yeah.
reality, I mean, there's a balance, right, with everything else, but I think in reality, it's not that hard.
Right,
You
right. And
know,
there may
like,
be some, like, there will be, not even there may be, there will be times of effort
yeah,
involved in like creating the life you're really here for. Um, but like it's good effort.
yeah, yeah. And again, it's aligned effort, which is the difference. I feel like with when you kind of really hone it down into what is it that you really want, or like you're saying, how is it that you really want to feel when we like, who is it that says we have goals for the experience, which is all has to do with the feeling, right?
Yeah.
So
I don't
good.
know who said that, but a bunch
It's
of people,
somebody
I
said,
think.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know who said it first, but yeah,
Quote
I think
no
that's
one,
absolutely
quote
on track.
everyone. Yes.
Right.
Yeah, that's so
But it's
good.
hard to get that experience if what your traumas have taught you, and everybody has trauma, right? Whether it's
Hmm.
little things or big things, your nervous system doesn't really even know the difference. But if what those traumas taught you was not safe to receive, you're not going to be cared for, you're not really worth it, like you're not going to be heard, if you reach out, nobody's going to come, right?
Hmm.
Then it's hard to create those experiences because those, like even the reaching for it can feel
Yeah.
painful.
Yeah, and there is such a like a block between where you are and what you want. And that's the healing ground, I feel like too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it can be painful to even be like, this is where I am and this is where I want to go. Like when you don't know that where you want to go is
So
possible, like that's painful to even look
so
at it,
painful.
right?
So painful. And it's painful when you like when you try and try again and don't get the result that you want. So, yeah. So
Right.
much shame.
That's why like support is so important on the healing process, right? Like we're wounded in relationship, we heal in relationship.
Totally. I am a product of that. And I know you are too. And so absolutely. Support squad,
Yeah.
squad up, hashtag. Um uh,
Love it. I
so
love it.
what are some major blocks, like one or two major blocks that you see? Like for me, I had some deep money wounds about have, deep relationship wounds too. Relationship, money, similar-ish, right? Like not being good enough or not being safe to receive. like money or like wanting love, but not really wanting myself. That was a big one for me. What are kind of the top maybe two that you see the most in healing this part of us?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, am I allowed to talk about us working together?
Sure.
Like, are you
Yeah,
out with that?
I am
Okay.
now. So
Okay,
wait,
because
let me
you
let
can
me
edit it
let
out.
me cue this up. So
Okay.
this is all Spitfire here on the podcast. But Jane and I have been working together now for almost a year. She is my coach. She is dope. She's amazing. Everything that you see here or you listen here, most of it has to do with my growing within the container that she has set for me. Some of you know in my audience that I've had my podcast for a long time. So you might know that I did go through a stint where I wasn't producing podcast episodes, even though I really speak with my soul. I started my coaching practice, as you all know, with Jane by my side in my hashtag support squad. And I am eternally grateful. There you go, Jane. Go right ahead.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm crazy proud of you. But like so the question was like common wounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you just shared a little bit about what your big wounds were, right? Like that your money wounds and your relationship wounds were the same. And I think that's actually pretty universal.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think they all spring from like really early attachment wounds. I think most of the time it has to do with receiving. And just did an Instagram post about this. Like there's all this like, oh, just receive. Well, what if you received in the past? What if what you received wasn't safe?
Right.
What if you got some really bad shit? Right.
Yeah.
Or what if sometimes you'd get what you needed and sometimes you wouldn't? Or,
Mm-hmm.
even things like medical procedures or being isolated as a kid or things like that, right? Like those show up as receiving wounds. They show up as worth wounds. And those receiving and worth wounds are like across the board money and relationship stuff. Like what blocks us with money blocks us with love, because they
Mm-hmm.
both have to do with our attachment system and
Yes.
our relationship to ourselves.
Yes. And they both provide very deep needs for us. But if
Yeah.
we have the wrong wiring, which is what we're talking about, if we're wired not wrong, but if we're wired in a certain way where um it isn't aligned kind of with our true self and that inner deep heart that you're talking about, then we don't freaking know any different. Right? And that's where the healing is so crazy good. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you've seen that, and like your trajectory has been amazing, right? That, it didn't take you a whole long time of healing these core wounds before you really were thriving in your calling and like really like stepping into your practice. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that
True.
transformation is actually pretty typical. Like you
Right.
get down into the root of it, and then it's not causing the problem anymore. You can interact with it differently, and then you can create pretty easily.
Yeah. And interacting with our protective parts too. I feel like a lot of people are scared because most of us these days are pretty well, not most of us. I would say most of us probably that are listening to this podcast are pretty well versed on like the inner child work or maybe parts work or internal family systems work. But getting to know that protective part of me too, that really wants to protect me, having that relationship, just it's a kind of a homecoming, like I talk about that a lot. It's like a coming home to self for sure.
Yeah,
So good.
absolutely. And it's just such a beautiful opportunity to um, become more powerful,
God, yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've referenced myself on Instagram twice now, but I literally
So
like just
wait,
wrote
yes.
about that.
So Jane's LinkedIn's Instagram will be in the show
I'm
notes.
on
Drop, drop,
Instagram.
drop.
That's where I
Yes.
put stuff. But it's also kind of like where I like explore what I think. And like if you've been through, and I imagine a lot of your listeners have, if you've been through some intense things, if you've been through trauma, right? Like if you're on a healing path, it's not like you heal and then it's like it never happened, right? Like it's
Mm-hmm.
not like that. You don't become like fresh again, right? But what you can become on the other side of healing is extraordinarily powerful, because
Mm-hmm.
then you get to really like cast a wide net and make friends with all of these parts of you that were hurt. And those hurt parts of you can become, your internal compass. They can become your advisors. They can become your protectors in a good way, right? And it just like the wholeness that's possible and the power that's possible on the other side of healing is, gosh, I don't want to say worth the price of the ticket, because I don't wish any kind of trauma on anybody, but it's a sort of powerful you can't really get anywhere else. So.
Yeah. And it's probably something that if you're listening, you may feel deep down inside. I mean, it sounds cheesy, but that's the way I felt like when I kind of reached that point of like, shit's not going to work for me anymore. And if y'all know my story out there, but it just had to be something better. Like, just like society and my parents told us that we had to go to college and get a degree and then we get a good job and then our life is going to be happy, like that kind of thing was bullshit. And the and that's the way I felt. Like this recipe for happiness that I've been given, I think you mentioned this before, is bullshit. And so I think that there is a deeper calling within all of us to be who we're supposed to be, to grow and develop, and like you say all the time, is like share our gifts to the world. And like it's just amazing, like the growth and the development and transformation is so dope.
Yeah, and like you said before, to like alchemize that pain
Mm-hmm.
and turn it into something that's useful for you
Mm-hmm.
and for others,
Other
but
people too. Yeah.
also for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We're running up on time. How do you feel? Do you want to add anything kind of to this good, juicy? We went deep first. So we're swimming in the ocean. I like it there, but what haven't we touched on? Do you feel like that's important? And then we'll give you a chance to kind of close out and tell everybody where to find you and stuff.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate your ability to go there, Lily. I know you like the deep end. Sometimes I feel like I'm good on these podcasts or interviews or whatever, and people are like, "What just happened to me?"
You spoke to God. Her name is Jane. I'm just kidding.
Oh gosh, oh gosh. What did we leave out? I don't know that we left anything out. I think there are a lot of things that we could talk about and go deep on. But I guess like where I would leave people, like if you are listening to this podcast, my guess is that you are on a healing path, which means some bad shit happened to you.
Mm-hmm.
And you're trying to figure out like how to live a life that's really fulfilling for you, right? Like maybe it's even just how to get through. And if it's just how to get through, I've been there. Like I've been there for
Yes,
sure. So
absolutely.
I guess I just want to leave you with the idea that like if you're on the healing path, then there's a lot of power that's possible there. And there's a lot of transformation that's possible there. And you absolutely can use every single shitty thing that's happened to you and turn that into power. And that can be your goal. And like, just don't stop, but for sure get support.
Get support. Absolutely.
100%. Gosh, I wish somebody had told me that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing I wish I knew.
Yep.
Like when I was 5. way earlier than I figured out, right?
Y'all,
Like
we
I
have
wish
been
somebody had
trying to
called
do
me and
this
like,
on our
hey, you're
own
gonna
for
need help.
decades. Yes, we have tried to been doing this on our own for decades. It's about time to call in squad. Like
Yeah,
freaking call in squad. Yes.
the faster you
Yes.
get support, the faster you get past it, the
Yeah.
faster you get whole, the faster you can get wealthy, like
Yeah.
all that stuff.
And it totally goes against everything that society tells us. Like all these people that you might admire or I admire, I totally thought that they did this shit on their own. It was a mindset and all this other stuff. Like, I don't know, you name it, Michael Jordan, Tony Robbins, like all this stuff. But in the back, like behind them, they've got a whole hell of a lot of people. So like, why can't we do that for us, which we can?
Yeah.
Yeah. We can make that
If it
choice.
was possible to do it alone, I would have figured that out already. Like
Same.
I'd have found that way.
I'd
It's
be
not
president
possible. You got
probably.
to get support.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
absolutely necessary.
Cool. It is amazing. I know I'm going to have you back. I love chatting with you about this deep shit. It's amazing always to have you on here.
Thank you. It's always amazing to be here.
Yeah, my pleasure. I know you have something juicy dropping.
Oh, mm-hmm.
Let's see. So I'm going to get bearings pretty straight. So this will drop on the 30th of June. And I know that you have something really, really good that you're offering to your community. And I don't know if I told you this, but I have a little bit of something I want to add to the pot as well. So you go first and then I'll pipe in.
Yeah, beautiful. So when this podcast hits, Wild Prosperity Bootcamp will be open for enrollment.
Wild
It's open until
Prosperity Bootcamp.
Wild
Okay.
Prosperity Bootcamp. So if you have kind of a wild soul and you want a lot of prosperity, this is the bootcamp for you. New tagline.
Yeah.
Enrollment is open until July 4th. This is a really special round because I'm doing the entire thing live. It is a 12-week coaching course. So 6 of those weeks will be teaching. There'll be modules. We'll learn to rewire your nervous system for abundance. We'll get into the root cause of this shit and like heal that all up, learn to create a secure relationship with money, and to manifest from that place of fullness. And we'll have 6 weeks of deep dive group coaching calls. The coaching, Lily, you could probably speak to this better than I can.
That I can.
But it's the coaching that gets people the results that they get, which are pretty phenomenal. And to do it in community is incredibly, incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
So I encourage you to check that out. I'm sure Lily will drop a link. It's actually just janeysadora.com/wild prosperity bootcamp. But join us if you're ready for this kind of work for sure.
Yes. And even if you're not ready, give it a shot, man. Give it a
I
freaking shot.
Stop saying if you're ready. It's really if you're called, because you won't feel ready. You're never going to feel ready.
No.
But if you're scared and you want it, like if you're scared and you want it, that's how you know.
If your palms are sweating, keep going because girl.
If your palms are sweating, sign up now. That's a really great sign that it's for you.
Yes. Raise his hand. Again, this is me. You know, it's everyone. I feel like when we are called to do our deepest work is when the fear is going to come up all the time.
Me too.
Jane's raising her hand too, people.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have coaches, y'all.
Yes. Awesome. So that sounds amazing. And this offering is so dope. Again, I can attest to Jane's work. She's a healer. You're listening to me. You have been listening to my voice for whoever knows how long. Welcome to new listeners as well. And it's been me totally. And because I've grown in my power and I've grown in my strength, but Jane has been behind me. She's been part of my team. So I'm super thankful for that. So I'll put the link to your good shit in the show notes. And I also want to add a little bit of a gift for all of the listeners in my community. What I want to add to this is you're on the money side. I'm on the relationship and love side. So we can do a double whammy with this bonus that I'm offering. When you purchase out there, the listener, go to Jane's link, make the purchase, sign up with her, get some good fucking support and get going on your healing journey. And I'll give you a bonus, which is something from me, from my heart to yours, which is Cutting the Codependency Cord Workshop. It's a $297 value, and that's for yours for free. It's a bonus. Jane and I are a dope team, and we want you to heal. We want everyone to heal. So I'd love to add that to the pot. It's a great energetic healing. It's 2 hours of meditation, healing work, really starting to get you on that relationship and love side, going in the path of finding yourself again, really is what it is. So in order to do that, when you check out with Jane, message me a screenshot on Instagram or send me an email, and I'll put the email in the comments or in the show notes, and you will start on your healing journey to love, to alignment, to freaking manifesting, man. Let's do it. Every woman, man, child deserves good shit, right?
Yes. Yes. What you want is for you. If you
Yes.
want it, it is possible. What you want is for you.
Yes.
Also, that is a sick bonus, Lily. I love it.
Yeah, it'll be good. Like, it'll be a nice little dual thing going on to start you on your life to manifesting and all the good shit that you want. Anything else you want to add? And I'll put all that information in the show notes. Anything else you want to add before we go, Jane?
No, thanks for listening. Keep going. Thanks for having me, Lily. It's been
Yeah,
amazing.
it's my pleasure. All right, y'all.